Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It is a Friday, and yes, ahead of some National Football League games on Saturday. Of course, the games on Sunday, but lots of college football bowl games headed your way. In fact, coming up in about an hour from now, and then a lot of games on Saturday as well. So we're going to preview as much as we possibly can for you here on the show. We got Matt Latovsky from Sporting News, also Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report, and also Adam Kaufman with the latest in the National Football League as well. So covering it all for you and recapping everything, no doubt, in the NFL, college football. And we actually have some baseball news, surprisingly, here on the show today as well. Okay, so exciting college bowl season, that's for sure. The NFL should take a cue from this because last night's game between the Seahawks and Bears set me back years and years of watching football. My gosh, this was one of the ugliest games of the entire season. 9 points total scored in this game. 9 points. The Bears offense has been so bad. They've lost 10 games in a row. They had so many different opportunities to get on the board in this one. They just couldn't do it. So Seattle is very much alive in the playoff chase. In fact, they'll be rooting very heavily for the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday against the Rams, but they do just enough. What are the highlights in this one? I mean, we're showing you some images, but honestly, there were none. Nothing happened offensively, just a total of 3 field goals in the game. But a win is a win, as they say, and that's what the head coach, Mike Macdonald, is saying too.
Just how we drew it up, exactly what we expected, 6-3. It's not easy coming across the country in a short week, playing in an atmosphere like that. So our guys deserve a lot of credit for the poise, stuck together throughout. We faced some adversity throughout the game, and then our defense just deserves a lot of credit, man. They just they played really hard. Even when they made some unbelievable plays there in some critical moments, you got to give their quarterback a lot of credit. I mean, he made some phenomenal plays under duress. So we just kept fighting, and then you defend a blade of grass at the end of the day. So had an opportunity to win it at the end, and guys did a great job.
Yeah, meanwhile, the Bears had an opportunity at the end as well. Caleb Williams made some fantastic plays to put them at least in the range of a potential field goal, but they could not get it done, and they fell short in the end. The crowd not happy with a lot of different things in that game. Clock management, offensive play, boos raining down at Soldier Field at the end. Caleb Williams, quarterback, heard them all.
Yeah, I've only been here for, it's my first year. So, their frustrations, go way longer back than I've been here. My job is to, go out there and win games. And, we don't focus on outside noise. The fans are, they're going to cheer and maybe boo sometimes. And, you can't react to that. It's not something that, we react to. We have a job to do. And, sometimes, you don't do so well on the job some days, and some days you're pretty consistent. Some days you play a great game. So
good answer, but the outside noise was actually inside noise in the stadium. Rough scene for the Bears. All right, rough scene for the Mavericks. Luka Doncic going to be out for at least a month. He aggravated a calf strain that he had on Christmas Day. He's going to be out, and now the Mavericks are going to have to pick up the pieces. Now, naturally, the season is long in the NBA, and the Mavericks probably still will make the playoffs regardless, but not the first time Luka's been out for a period of time, and that is going to happen yet again. All right, one hot stove signing in Major League Baseball. New York Post reports this morning that the Detroit Tigers are jumping into the free agent activity. They've signed Gleyber Torres to a one-year contract, reportedly worth approximately $15 million. The Tigers had a nice season last year. Looks like they're trying to get better this offseason. Dallas Cowboys are not going to have CeeDee Lamb for the next couple of games. They made the announcement as a sprained AC joint, so not available for your fantasy football championship. That definitely is a bummer. CeeDee Lamb of the Cowboys out next 2 games. Chargers also ruled Gus Edwards, their running back, out, but it's possible that J.K. Dobbins could return. He's been out for a few weeks with an MCL sprain. Also in the National Football League, a signing, Teddy Bridgewater, who coached his high school team to a state championship, has now unretired and signed with the Detroit Lions. Now, obviously, Jared Goff is the starting quarterback and Hendon Hooker is the backup, but it looks like Teddy Bridgewater's headed back to the NFL. Head coach Dan Campbell talked about his return.
I've been in contact with Teddy for a while, and it was something that was always potentially a possibility. And we all know what Teddy's been doing down there and giving back to his community. And they won a championship down there, so his debut as coaching worked out pretty dang good. But just, to be able to add somebody back here that's got experience, he's staying in shape, he's been throwing, just get him work back in here a little bit. It just brings a level of professionalism, veteran presence, somebody that's great for our team. He's great for the position. Doesn't mean we're disappointed in Hooker. That's not what this means. It just means this gives this guy somebody that's played a lot in the NFL. We're getting ready for the playoffs, and so it'll be good to get him back in the fold with us.
All right, now let's get to the latest in college football. Another overtime game in a bowl game. 6 overtimes between Toledo and Pittsburgh. Final 48-46. There was just a 5 overtime game in the Hawaii Bowl also. It was the 3rd straight game to go to overtime in the bowl series. And also, Kansas State almost needed an overtime. They beat Rutgers 44-41 in a game that Rutgers led pretty much throughout. Dylan Edwards, Kansas State's running back, had his best game of the season, 196 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. So naturally, Greg Schiano's had a really good bowl record. Pretty upset that he wasn't able to come away with this one.
Certainly disappointed, but not discouraged. We have really good core in our program right now, and we have a huge debt of gratitude to the guys that played their last game today, the seniors. They came into Rutgers when there was nothing to believe in other than us. We had no record to show for it. And unfortunately today we just came up a little short. It was a heck of a football game. 2 really good teams that played really hard. And I'd like to acknowledge just the hard work that our guys put into this preparation. I mean, everybody in the program, the coaches, the players, the support staff, our administration, everybody really, really stepped up. And I wish we could have given them a victory. But as I tell the players, in life, if you do everything you can to be the best you can be disappointed, but you have peace. And I know that this team did everything they could and just came up a little short.
All right, fair enough from head coach Greg Schiano. Meanwhile, upset yesterday in the bowl game. Haven't seen a ton of them. Arkansas State beat Bowling Green 38-31. Bowling Green was almost 10-point favorites going into this one. Opened up at 7, went all the way to 10.5. And also new head coach of Delaware State, former NFL wide receiver Deshaun Jackson is taking over as their new head coach. All right, bowl season continues today. We have it covered for you here at SportsGrid. 12 o'clock Eastern, the biggest line movement of any of the games thus far in the bowls is definitely the first one. Oklahoma was 7-point favorites over Navy. They're down to 2.5 today in the Armed Forces Bowl. That will be followed by Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt in the Birmingham Bowl. That's 3:30 Eastern. Georgia Tech 2.5-point favorites. Then we have Texas Tech 1.5-point favorites over Arkansas in the Liberty Bowl tonight. Syracuse takes on Washington State. The Q's 17.5-point favorites in the Holiday Bowl, 8 o'clock Eastern. Texas A&M will cap it all off tonight. That's the final bowl game in Las Vegas. 3.5-point favorites against USC, and the total of 52.5. One quick note from the NBA. Had been some speculation that Jimmy Butler, all-star of the Miami Heat, was requesting a trade. Regardless of what has been said, Pat Riley, the president and CEO of the team, has said that Butler will remain with the Miami Heat. We'll be back with more here on NewsWire right after this.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans, bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Matt Latufsky's with us from Sporting News. He was up all night thinking just how great that game was between the Seahawks and Bears. He's all excited to join us here during the holiday season to break it all down. Matt, thanks again for coming on the show here. Happy holidays to you. What are we going to say? Was this? I mean, look, I don't know how you judge it because the worst games of the NFL season are usually the ones like, as an example, like Baltimore crushing Houston. Like, this game at least was close, but from an offensive perspective, I'm guessing this was the worst played game of the year.
Well, yeah, and it's funny, people were saying worst game of the year. I thought Monday's game was the worst game. That game, no one cared going into it, and it was a blowout, kind of like you said. So the NFL's on a 0 for 4 streak so far this week alone on games. And last night was rough. There's no getting around it, no offense. Just an ugly game all around, rainy game. It didn't help, that they're a day after everyone was so excited. They should have put Beyonce at halftime of that game just to spruce it up because it was rough. But, at the end of the day, you look at it and Seattle's still alive in the playoffs and they get a little extra help this week. They'll be in good shape for the playoffs going into next week. And obviously that's what they're worried about. Chicago just looks like they are completely down and out. Didn't matter. Different coach than on Thanksgiving. Yeah. Same clock management issues plagued them at the end. They're obviously just looking for a merciful end to this season, and if they can get through things and start looking for a new coach and planning for that draft pick to help Caleb Williams. But I think probably the less said about last night's game, the better for all parties, including the NFL.
And including us. So let's move on.
Yes.
Seattle is the 4 seed right now with a 9-7 record. This is for the wild card. They got to jump up ahead of Washington or root for the Cardinals to beat the Rams this week. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers are sitting on the outside looking in. They're going to need a win this week against the Carolina Panthers. I would assume that they will get it. It's a strange league, this league, Matt, but it's been a very chalky season, to say the least. Usually the big favorites have been covering for the most part all year. It's been the middle numbers that have not. I would assume they will win, and I would also assume that the Bucs will try to get Mike Evans another 1,000 yards. I know that's on the table for him as well.
Yeah, I would think so. It's an interesting game because, anytime you have a divisional game this late, those can get a little weird. And the Panthers are playing much better ball than they played early in the year. Certainly we've seen that the last couple weeks. This isn't a completely roll over and die team. We know there's the Dave Canales connection. Now the head coach of the Panthers, used to be offensive coordinator with the Bucs, sort of credited with helping revive Baker Mayfield's career down there. So there are a lot of connections here to this team. I certainly don't think it's going to be easy. I think that number is a little big for as much life as the Panthers have shown. And after the Bucks lost last week in that very strange game where we all just sort of expected that they'd take care of business against a Cowboys team that had nothing to play for. Yes, that game was on the road, a Sunday night game, but nonetheless, I think we were all expecting a little bit more of the Bucks. So this is going to be an interesting game for sure. I do think the Bucks will prevail. Like you said, Mike Evans has his streak to keep up. He normally does well against the Panthers. I think they will target him a lot. But I'm not completely writing this one off because we know there's going to be a couple of these games at the end of the year where it's either a team that's resting its starters and still comes out and wins, or a massive upset no one sees coming, like a team that you just think, why are you winning? You're way better off losing. And then they beat a team in playoff contention. We're going to get at least one. I don't know if it's this one, but we'll get one.
Yeah, we will. It happens every year. Sunday Night Football has actually maybe the best game of the week, one of them at least. Maybe Packers-Vikings is the best, but Falcons-Commanders is Sunday night. Matt, I'm confused. Is Washington playing for anything here? Have they clinched the playoffs already? They're 4.5-point favorites against Atlanta. I know how much the game means to Atlanta, but I believe for Washington, they're not going to win the division. Philadelphia is going to win, so they're going to be in a wild card position, is my guess.
Yeah, probably. I definitely think they want to, get this win and sort of just leave nothing to doubt, get as many wins as possible. You have a rookie quarterback. I think you want to go into the playoffs as on a high a note as possible. Certainly, they've won a couple games that they probably shouldn't have won. So you look at the 10 wins, you think, wow, what a great year. Yes, obviously it is. But at the same time, they're had a little bit more precarious of a season than maybe the record indicates. So they're not going to leave anything to chance, and they want to go in and take care of business and get that momentum going. Michael Penix, I saw some people raving about him after his first game. I just didn't see it. He was competent. I guess that's all they needed in that game. They got the win. They stopped the bleeding from what, Kirk Cousins had kind of been doing at quarterback there. But I didn't see enough to get me too excited about him yet. And certainly I think that Commanders offense is pretty solid. And I think they're going to be tough for Atlanta to stop. And I just don't know if that offense is going to be there yet for Atlanta. It could be. We just don't know. But I think Washington's a pretty safe bet with what they got going offensively right now.
Yeah. Atlanta is still the underdog to win the NFC South because of the game this week. Tampa Bay is minus 130 to win that division. All right, so if that's not the game of the week, maybe this one is. Packers at Vikings. And despite how well the Vikings have played all season long, we just keep doubting them, and they keep winning. But the odds makers are still telling us maybe they're buying in a little more, but not even enough. Matt, they're only 1.5 favorite at home for a team with this record. I understand Packers are good. I get it. But you would think 3-point favorites, that's pretty standard for a game like this. But nope, there's still, some pull here on the Packers, plus 1.5, total of 48.5. Hopefully this is the best game of the week because I think we're going to have a lot of duds this week.
Yeah, I think so too. But I do think this one's going to be a great game. And, I don't know how much people remember the first time these two teams played way back in week 4. It was 28-0 Minnesota before Green Bay made a furious rally. It finished 31-29. Probably wasn't that close, but nonetheless, these are two very evenly matched teams. Green Bay, the only team that has beaten them since that loss to Minnesota, is Detroit twice over. Very close games, or at least one of them was a close game. These teams are very evenly matched. The Vikings have kind of a fatal flaw, which is their pass defense. Part of that's because the run defense is so good, but nonetheless, they can be beaten through the air. Green Bay, I think, is just a better all-around team. The problem is Jordan Love going to stop the turnovers? He's done a pretty good job this year, but he's had some rough games. Sam Darnold's just been playing pretty clean all year. A few red zone turnover issues. It's going to be close. I think the odds makers are right not to give Minnesota that full 3.
Yep, agreed. All right, Matt. Well, enjoy the games this weekend. I know that the playoff picture is going to be a lot clearer after this weekend, and thanks again for coming on and giving us a preview. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right, SportsGrid Sound Off up next. We will preview the big game with Penn State and Boise State right after this.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. One of the big college football playoff games coming up next week is the Fiesta Bowl between Penn State and an upstart Boise State team that's just waiting for them to play, the Nittany Lions. We'll have a preview of that game and also some words from Jim Harbaugh on their upcoming game this week as well. It's time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. Well, one of the reasons why Boise State is in the spot that they are is because of their all-world running back, Ashton Jeanty, arguably the best running back in all of college football. He makes Boise State go, and he's been virtually unstoppable in almost every game that he's played this season. So no doubt that's going to be the focus for the Penn State Nittany Lions. They're going to have to somehow find a way to stop him. If they do, they'll win. But as James Franklin says, if not, that is the key to the win.
He is hard to tackle. He is compact, he's 5'10", has the ability to run away from you, has the ability to make you miss. They get him involved in the pass game. They get him involved in the run game. And then the quarterback is athletic as well. He reminds me a little bit of the quarterback that we faced from West Virginia. We had a ton of respect for on tape when we played them. But, they're a problem. And, but I think it starts and ends with the running back. And I think they do a really good job of not only getting him the ball in the run game, but also in the pass game, but then also using him in play action pass to create some opportunities to get some explosive plays down the field in the passing game. So it'll be a definite challenge for us. But they're kind of a two-headed monster, both athletic guys. Not both of them aren't the biggest guys in the world, but are really good, productive football players that have done it week in and week out against everybody.
And of all the teams that are remaining in the college football playoff, there are some that probably are not familiar with Arizona State, but a lot that are not familiar with Boise State. So head coach Spencer Danielson gave us a little preview as to what we can expect heading into their big game this week and gave a lot of kudos to the people at the top of their college football organization.
It's everything. I mean, I have so much support. I mean, I really truly believe we have the best athletic director in the country in Jeremiah Dickey. I mean, it's never, no, I can't do that from him. It's always, we'll figure it out. We'll find a way. Keep pushing forward. I mean, I am supported by our administration, supported by our staff, by our players, by the community. I mean, Bronco Nation, 7 games, 7 sellouts. I mean, across the board, the support that I feel as the head coach, and I know our team feels from our community and beyond, is through the roof. And even where, Boise State has been built on the backs of years and years of success way before I got here. And so even this season is not because of me, it's because a group of young men, wanted to leave a legacy, be different. We haven't been to the Fiesta Bowl in a decade. And they said in January, we're going to go get that done. And they went to work. And we do have the support from, like I said, our administration, our ADs a 10 out of 10, and Bronco Nation is a fan base that is near and dear to our heart that support us at all times. I know they'll show up in a major way now the Fiesta Bowl, but we might not have what everybody else has, but we definitely have enough, and we're going to continue to push forward.
Yeah, no question. That'll be one of the better games of next week. Meanwhile, will we get a good game this week and some potential bad weather in the Northeast up in New England? Could be one of those games where rain and snow is a factor. Jim Harbaugh's team, the LA Chargers, going to have to travel cross-country to get a win. They are 4.5-point favorites. Harbaugh says they should be used to this challenge.
We had a little rainfall last week, one day of practice. That was great to have that. But most all of us have played in those kind of games, or grew up in that kind of weather, And bottom line is, these guys are young, they're healthy, and their heart pumps warm blood, pumps it from the arteries to the veins, to the tributaries, to the capillaries, throughout their whole body. You just play ball. Been my experience. Now, I might have got that in the wrong order there. It's well documented. I'm not a doctor. We need to check with the cardiologist. That's right. But I know it's warm blood. The young, healthy, athletic guys are able to generate.
All right. Very good anatomy lesson. Capillaries and blood and pumping. Didn't see that coming in on our show today, but here we are. Sam McQuillan's up next from Legal Sports Report. Crypto.com launches a new trading market and sports is involved. What does that mean for people who potentially want to use their app? We'll tell you next here on NewsWire. Don't go away.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under lights, a team, united by purpose, fans bound by passion, each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on Sports Grid. Really, news was made this week in the sports betting universe when it kind of felt like, to me, out of nowhere, Crypto.com, very popular cryptocurrency exchange, launched a new sports trading market. Kind of caught us off guard Monday, but we're here now to break it a little down a little bit more. And they have a column up at LegalSportsReport.com. Sam McQuillan is with us to discuss it and a whole lot more. Sam, happy holidays. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Yeah, happy holidays to you too, Craig. Happy to be back.
All right, so let's get right into it. We get the announcement, and the app makes the announcement on Monday that they are launching a new trading market for sports, and all sports, by the way. So I am somebody that has the Crypto.com app. I opened it up. I took a look. And after sort of navigating what it looks like, this, to me, Sam, honestly, looks like futures betting. But they have gone a different path where you essentially could buy shares of a team, pay a certain amount of money, and then the outcome, if I'm not mistaken, would be $100. So, Sam, how did this all come together, and how is this legalized in states essentially that don't have legalized sports betting?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Craig. I think the timing here is imperative. Right at the end of the year, and with a huge futures event on the horizon, like the Super Bowl, it's actually the only sport or event you can bet on the Crypto.com website or app right now, either yes or no on one of 19 teams that's offered. And noticeably, the prices on those teams are a lot worse than you would find on a sports book. And to your point, how has this become offered? How is this legal? That's because the mechanism with which this works is much different from an actual sports book. It's event trading or futures trading. And the reason that they're able to offer this is because of what we saw happen recently in November, just before the presidential election. You had a number of popular websites such as PredictIt, Kalshi. They actually won an appeal in a DC federal court that said that these events can be sort of deemed as trading a stock, so to speak. So the same way that Crypto.com offers trading Bitcoin or other types of coins, they're just kind of looking at these events the same way. So it's not actually gambling, which means that they're able to offer it in states like Florida, where you are, where Hard Rock Bet is the only sports betting app. Yet you can also somehow wager on the Super Bowl using a website like Crypto.com. Now, that means it's not regulated by any of the states. The state gambling commissions would, to make it simplified, would have actually no purview over this kind of events. It's something that would be regulated by the CFTC, which was trying to get this struck down, these events trading on contracts, trading on elections, sports events now, trying to get that struck down. So we'll see if they try to resume that fight. But really interesting to see Crypto.com get into this space. We've seen Robinhood, I think we talked about it last week, announce that they're going to do something similar. So it's these stock-based trading markets basically treating sports like a stock, so they can get around the normal gambling rules. And it'll be really interesting to see what they offer beyond just the Super Bowl, because obviously that's a futures event. If eventually you're going to be able to, take the Chiefs -6, or you get to a place down the road where you're doing player props, something like that. But I'd have to imagine that the legal industry that has spent billions and billions of dollars just to get sports betting legalized, first of all, and then so much more money to get licensed, to do all the regulatory process and pay the fees in just 37 states. You have some apps that are barely available in 15 and have been struggling to survive. I'd have to imagine they'd be pretty annoyed seeing a website just all of a sudden say, hey, if you like to bet cryptocurrency, why don't you bet the Super Bowl with us too? And you can do it in all 50 states, states like California, Georgia, Texas, where these companies are still fighting really hard to get sports betting legalized. So, this past year, we've talked about other forms of sports betting or de facto forms of gambling really rise. We've seen it with the fantasy apps offering what kind of looks like parlays. We've seen it with these sweepstakes models, writing their rules and mechanisms in a way that sort of lets them skirt state laws and find loopholes. So, it's a really, really big money industry. So now you're seeing all these other players finding kind of adjacent alternate ways to get in. We'll see if the regulation can catch up. Lord knows it's still trying to catch up to the regular, actual federal legal sports betting. So it's going to be another interesting year as all this stuff comes to a head in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, and I can only imagine like the players that are in the non-betting game, like Underdog and Prize Picks, are like, wait a second here, like what's going on here? Like if they can do it, why can't we? I don't know. We'll see. And this is, you're right, one to follow: California, Texas, especially these states that don't have legalized sports gambling. Okay, so over at LSR, LegalSportsReport.com, you can read about the biggest sports betting stories of the year. Unfortunately, we did not have a lot of new states becoming legalized this year, so that was not part of the equation. But other big stories were prominent. Very specifically, Sam, will start off with a record-breaking year in sports betting, despite the fact that very few states went online. It didn't stop the people who are out there from betting quite a bit, did it?
No, to your point, Craig, usually when we've talked in the past about, new records being broken and more money bet than ever before every year, it's kind of a no-brainer. You turn a state like New York on, of course you have more states now than you did then. It's going to be up. But this year we only really had North Carolina, yet total betting is expected to exceed last year by about 20%, which is just a huge jump considering we didn't really have many new states. We're expecting about $150 billion bet total this year. And a lot of that is because of operators just frankly making more money and pushing higher margin bets. We talk about it all the time with parlays and same game parlays. At LSR, our projections have that most operators are going to finish with an average of 9.5% hold, which historically is record breaking. Nevada has held about 6 to 7%. Ever since it legalized sports betting. So you see operators are making more money and getting people to bet more frequently, getting people to reinvest their bets as well, which is really driving up this hold. So you even have a state like Nevada where online sports betting isn't so big because of the presence of casinos and because of the laws are written in a way that makes it hard to register, and they want people betting in person. But this is going to be the first year Nevada finishes outside of the top 5 in total dollars bet since the 1940s when it first legalized gambling. So used to obviously talk about Nevada as the king of sports betting, but it's not even in the top 5 anymore. You have states like New York making $1 billion in taxes in just 1 year, which is much more than lawmakers really could ever have conceived when this industry first became legal. We've talked a lot about sports books raising their expectations for the total addressable market in the next couple of years. It seems like this industry is just growing at a much faster pace than we ever imagined. And with that, I'd also expect some other players to get squeezed out. I think if you took the over on over 0.5 sports books exiting the space every year, you'd be a pretty rich person.
Yeah.
And we saw PointsBet drop out. We saw, Maxim Bet. We've seen SI Sportsbook. We've seen all these Fox Bet. We've seen all these guys, try and fail. So I would expect probably at least one more next year, especially as a lot of them feel pressure, especially, from investors, and the market continues to go towards FanDuel and DraftKings at the top.
Yeah, I would agree on that. Okay, so a lot of scandals in the first half of the year, not as many in the second half of the year. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's definitely fair to say. I think a lot of it, I don't know if it was timing, it all came to a head in January through March. You obviously had the Shohei Ohtani interpreter. You had Jonte Porter later than that. But we've seen the industry recover and move on from it. Hopefully no more scandals next year, but you never really know. Sometimes it's just a product of the legal industry working the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, well, Sam, great stuff as always. Happy holidays. Thanks again for coming on the show here on this Friday, and all the best this weekend. We'll catch up again next week.
Thanks, Craig. You too.
All right, Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report. You could read about everything that happened in the world of sports betting over at LegalSportsReport.com. Head on over there now. We'll take a quick time out here on NewsWire. When we come back, Adam Kaufman will join us. We'll recap some of the things that we saw this week in the NFL. And is Lamar Jackson still in the MVP race? We'll ask Adam next. Don't go away.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid as we get ready to close out our Friday. Let's take a quick look back here at some of the things we saw in the NFL, and then we'll look forward with Adam Kaufman, who joins us, one of our SportsGrid analysts here on the show. And, Adam, I asked the question yesterday here on the show, just hypothetically speaking, and Frank, my producer, told me that there have been co-MVPs in the NFL. It's been a long time since it's happened, but it's happened twice. Lamar Jackson, honestly, has been every bit as good as Josh Allen. And I just wonder, from your perspective, do you think that the NFL would allow this to happen? Is it with the voting and popularity contests, et cetera? I know Allen is still a pretty heavy favorite on the FanDuel Sportsbook, but what Lamar has done has just completely flown under the radar just because I don't think that he's necessarily running as much over the middle and scoring touchdowns as Josh Allen. Josh Allen is just scoring all these touchdowns, so he gets all the highlights. But has Lamar been every bit as good? Could this come down to the last game or two?
Look, I don't think this is that complicated. I really don't. And I've been getting pushed back on social media about this. To me, not only is Josh Allen the MVP of the NFL and has been for weeks and is just further cementing his case week by week, I'm not convinced that Lamar Jackson's the MVP of his own team. I mean, where would the Ravens be without Derrick Henry? Would they still be good? Would they still be a playoff team? Sure. But Buffalo without Josh Allen would be a dumpster fire. And if you want, as far as the Ravens go, just look back to this most recent game against the Texans. Did Lamar have good numbers by the end? Sure. Didn't throw for a whole lot. He had a couple of touchdowns, ran well, had almost 100 yards rushing, had a touchdown there in part because he had the almost 50-yard run. But when they jumped out to that, 10-0 lead by the end of the opening quarter, it was largely Derrick Henry who was the trendsetter in that one. He had 70-plus rushing yards just off the hop in that game. I think there are multiple facets of this debate that you can look at, okay? People want to look at Lamar and look at the stats. This is, again, the pushback that I get on Twitter. It's all the touchdown to interception ratio, the yards, sure. In the aggregate, you can look at it and say, generally speaking, Lamar Jackson has better numbers than Josh Allen. However, again, they added a generational running back who is leading the AFC in rushing yards by a country mile, whereas Josh Allen had to kind of rediscover how his offense was going to work on the fly. They got rid of Stephon Diggs. They lost Gabe Davis. Those two guys combined for 243 targets last year. He comes into this year having to play the role of Superman with an not entirely new look offense, but at some of the key positions, you forget James Cook and the tight ends. In terms of the wide receiving core, almost entirely new. Allen has had to figure that out. What people don't talk about anymore at all is that the Jets were the team that a lot of people thought were going to win the AFC East, or the Dolphins. This was their time to win the AFC East. People thought the Bills, Craig, were going to regress this year. Instead, they have run away with what has turned out to be a bad division. Injuries, whatever to blame, that's fine. Josh Allen has been stupendous, and the Bills are now making it 5 straight division crowns, the earliest team to clinch a division in the NFL a month ago, nearly. Meanwhile, the Ravens, not only have they not clinched their division yet, they might not. The Steelers might still win the AFC North. And so there's a lot of debate, I think, team to team between these two cases. Josh Allen, on top of that, has played through, reportedly anyway, much of this season with a broken hand to his non-throwing hand. So that seems relevant, what he has gutted through. He's not missed any plays as a result. The only time that we ever see him off the field is when the blowout is so massive that he gets, benched toward the end of it because they don't need him anymore. Lamar's not seeing a lot of those situations, and maybe the biggest feather in Josh Allen's cap, he is the only player, the Bills, the only team to beat both the Chiefs and the Lions this year. The rest of the NFL is a combined 1-28 against those two teams. Josh Allen took them both down. I don't understand the argument how people are begging for Lamar Jackson, who has already won the award, to do so again. This is Josh Allen's time. To me, it is not difficult.
All right, well, we got to use that. I don't even think we could clip that. That was so much from Adam there. And look, you make a lot of good points. Statistically speaking, that doesn't add up. I mean, you know that. I mean, he's got more passing yards, more rushing yards, more total touch. Does Lamar Jackson? He has all of those things going. Now, again, he's played one more game, so that's going to even itself out with Buffalo playing this week. I agree with you on all fronts. The only thing that I guess I would take exception to is the fact that Buffalo would be I agree with you that Buffalo would be a dumpster fire without Josh Allen, but I personally think, Adam, that doesn't hold up with any team in the NFL. Every team would be a dumpster fire without their starting quarterback. We're seeing it over and over and over and over again in the NFL. The Ravens would be a dumpster fire. The Saints are a dumpster fire. Like it never ends with these backup quarterbacks in the NFL. So to me, that's the only thing that I would say is I don't think that holds. But yes, with the talent around him, completely different. That I get and I understand. Okay, so you've had your time on that. We got to move on. Jets and Bills this week. Bills, speaking of which, 8.5-point favorites against the Jets as we come to a close on this dreadful Jets season. Total of 46.5. I would expect the Jets to play better offensively because they have to be really embarrassed with not punting last week and only getting 9 points. But the Bills had their ATS scare last week against the New England Patriots. So do they bounce back from that?
What's hard is that the Bills are playing a generally meaningless game, right? I mean, they're no longer chasing the Chiefs for the top overall seed in the AFC. Kansas City locked that up, over the last couple of days. And so for the Bills, yeah, you'd like to go out and win and play well, but if you don't win, you don't get the cover. Like, it just doesn't matter with respect to the standings. Nothing is going to change. So that might be reason to side with the Jets because the number is as big as it is. Aaron Rodgers is playing well now that the games are meaningless. His connection with Devontae Adams looks like back in the Green Bay days. I mean, these guys are getting something done, but the Bills offensively primed to, I think if the Jets win, it would have to be in a shootout because the Bills are going to put up points. This defense for the Jets, terrible against the run, so James Cook should feast, and it's not a great secondary either. So as long as Josh Allen plays a full game, yeah, they should score.
All right, Adam, enjoy it. Saturday, 3 games, Sunday, full slate, and then next week, we'll find out who's in and who's out. Thanks again for coming on.
You bet.
All right, Adam Kaufman with us. Last Licks up next. Don't go away.
In the heart of winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion, each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Did anyone have raccoon for their Christmas dinner? I doubt it. Did anybody watch that insane game yesterday with Toledo and Pittsburgh? Maybe. And is anybody watching the Chicago Bears next week? I don't think so. Those are just some of the topics that we will cover as we wrap up today's show with some last licks. Well, yeah, the Chicago Bears are now the team that you could probably clown on more than any other in the National Football League. I honestly didn't realize that they've lost 10 games in a row. I mean, that's awful. I mean, that is pathetic. And their offense has been, bad for how many years, by the way? It feels like forever. When was the last time the Bears had a really good offense? I don't even know. But Al Michaels, who did the game last night on Amazon Prime, obviously had something thrown to him, by the way. I don't think that Frankie came up with this one on his own. But it also made its way to social media today that this will be the third time a Seattle team has beaten a Chicago team by a final score of 6-3 this year. It was brought up last night on the broadcast, and very clearly what they're referring to are these games in Major League Baseball with the Mariners beating the White Sox and beating the Cubs. Yeah, I mean, it's that sad. 6-3 finals in all of those games. I don't know if you could see them there. But it's just so shocking to me to see how – and I was rooting for this assistant coach, or now he's the interim coach, Thomas Brown. Seemed like a really nice guy. But unfortunately, former running back at Georgia, too, a little bit in and over his head. I don't know where the Bears go from here. They honestly, it's like one of those teams that just like have to completely blow things up. And they don't even have one of the top picks in the draft because they won so many games in the season's first month and a half. So poor Bears fans really up against it going into this offseason, and they'll probably lose again, I would guess, next week. All right, Xavier Legette, one of the more popular players that has been interviewed a ton on TV this year. He has shown up and been a fan favorite for the Carolina Panthers. Also showed up the day after Christmas with a little meal for a lot of his teammates. While Josh Allen is getting a pendant that's worth $50,000, Legette thought it was a good idea to bring in his meal leftovers from Christmas. So that's a great idea. But it ended up being raccoon. That's what Legette and his family had on Christmas. And that got a lot of attention, of course, from the media, and also the fact that he brought it in a little canister, which is really cute and nice. And a lot of the players were asked on the team as to whether or not they would try it. Surprisingly, most said yes. Most said that they would give it a shot. Now, we did not get any result from that, and hopefully it tasted good. But I think in the end, is it fair to say that if you like deep fry anything, it sort of tastes okay? Like, I don't know. I mean, I would not try this. But it seems to me that everybody fries things these days and the taste ends up being like semi-okay. Like, remember at baseball games, especially in Seattle, aren't they frying up insects? And they're saying that that's good too. It just tastes real salty. Yeah. Anyway. All right, let's close it out with the head coach of the Pitt Panthers, Pat Narduzzi. Yeah. That picture right there is from Barstool Sports. We didn't make that up. But Pat Narduzzi, what are you doing, man? Like, the Panthers are going into overtime after overtime in a bowl game. They have the ball on the 1-yard line with a chance to win their bowl game, and they kick a field goal to tie, and then Toledo gets the ball next. This was one of the most awful college bowl coaching decisions I've seen in a really long time. Like, you had a chance to win, but you played for a tie to move on to, what was it, overtime number 2 or overtime number 3? Made no sense whatsoever. And in the end, Pitt got punished. Toledo ends up winning the bowl game yesterday. So, worked out, I think, for all of us. Our Monday morning quarterbacking, or our couch coaching, as they say. Just an awful decision there, and especially with all of the kids who had to endure 4 hours of playing in a bowl game that was essentially meaningless. Oof. Bad look there. All right, that'll do it for our show today and our week of shows, folks. And boy, we have a lot to cover this weekend. So I would encourage you, for those of you playing in the Fantasy Football Championship, tune back in tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Eastern, as George Kurtz and I will have you covered for everything happening in fantasy football. And by the way, there's a lot of injuries and a lot to cover here on the show, so make sure you tune back in. So that's Saturday morning from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern. And then we have Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern, leading you right up until Pro Football Today. You can also take out your phone and download the SportsGrid app, not just from our fantasy programming, but from how we're covering all of these college football bowl games and playoffs. And folks, I am sure we're going to have a very big show coming up for the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl as well. So thanks to Luke and thanks to Frank. I'm Craig Mish. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day here on SportsGrid. I'll see you back here Monday for our next edition of NewsWire.
In the winter, when nights grow long, we come together under these lights. A team, united by purpose. Fans bound by passion. Each holding a small flicker of hope in their hands. At SportsGrid, we believe that even the darkest nights can't dim the unity we share. One team, one stadium, one shining moment. This holiday season, we shine brighter together. Happy Hanukkah from all of us at SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.